What would you do if you woke up one morning as the weakest creature in a world ruled by dragons, titans, and monsters who could level mountains? Because Ming Lei didn't just wake up in that world. He woke up at the very bottom of it, with nothing but a broken body and a secret that would change everything. One moment he was an ordinary office worker dragging himself between his apartment and his desk job on Earth. The next, he opened his eyes in a place called Beast Village, on a continent called the Sky Dome, where the sky was alive with creatures that made nuclear weapons look gentle. No internet, no electricity, no safety net. Just dragons the size of cities, titans who use mountains as footstools, and a social order that put humans firmly at the very bottom. In this world, humans weren't citizens. They weren't warriors. They were servants. No empire of their own, no rights, no legal protection. Just a quiet, brutal existence at the mercy of every other race on the continent. And Ming Lei had landed right in the middle of it, wearing the body of a scrawny 15-year-old boy whose parents had already been killed. In a beast-tide, Beast Village sat on the edge of the Beast Mountain Range, a wild stretch of wilderness that nearly cut the continent in half. The mountain range was home to magical creatures of every kind, and every so often, those creatures stopped being content with the forest. They came pouring out in waves, and the village bled for it every single time. Ming Lei had been in this world for barely a month when the horns started blaring. Old Pete, the village chief, hammered on his broken wooden door like the world was ending. Because it was, at least for the next few hours. Beast-tide, get to the shelter, now. Ming Lei ran. He cursed his luck the whole way. At the village center, the split was clean and efficient, a village that had done this before. Hades, the guard captain, a man built like a wall of muscle over 2 meters tall, barked orders from a boulder while the fighters lined up. Women, children, the elderly. They all funneled underground into a shelter sealed by a boulder the size of a small house. Ming Lei was about to follow them down when he noticed something strange. A small white ball of light had slipped from Uncle Leo's body and was drifting toward the ground. He blinked. Nobody else seemed to see it. Then a cold, mechanical voice rang inside his skull. Ding. Dropped item detected. Pick up. He froze. He looked at Leo. He looked at the orb. And then another voice cut in. Deeper. More deliberate. Explaining everything in a few crisp sentences. The ultimate pickup system was now active. It could harvest anything that fell from a living being. Money, items, skills, physical stats, mental power, magic spells. Pick up enough, and he would become unstoppable. His status panel blinked into view before his eyes. Body, 0.5 out of 10. Spirit, 1 out of 10. It was, to put it kindly, pathetic. But the system was real, and that changed everything. He picked up the first orb. His body stat jumped to 1. A warm current spread through every limb. A silver orb dropped next. He grabbed that too. Spirit up by 1. His thoughts sharpened like a blade being cleaned. He pinched himself. Hard. Not a dream. Ming Lei looked toward the village gate where the sounds of screaming and metal and blood were already filling the air, and he made a very bad decision. Or possibly, the best decision of his life. He snuck toward the fighting. What he found at the gate was something he had no framework to process. 20 or 30 men were holding back nearly 100 wild beasts at once. Blood-red saber-toothed tigers 3 meters long, steel boars with gleaming fangs, 2-headed vultures that screamed from both throats at once. The beasts threw themselves at the wooden wall in waves, crawling over their own dead without hesitation. The stench of blood hit him like a wall. His stomach lurched. But then he saw the orbs. Glowing spheres scattered across the battlefield like scattered coins, pulsing in the dirt and the chaos. Ding. Dropped item detected. He started picking them up from the shadows, one after another, and the warmth kept coming. Body up by 3. Spirit up by 1. Body up by 2. He was leveling up in real time. Standing at the edge of a massacre with a rake he'd pulled from the ground. That was when Hades noticed him. The captain's eyes locked onto the scrawny kid lurking near the wall, and the pressure coming off him felt like standing in front of a hurricane. He barked at Ming Lei to get back to the shelter, split a charging boar in half without even looking, and turned his attention back to the fight. But before Ming Lei could respond, a long howl split the air from deep inside the beast horde. Every animal around it stepped aside to let it pass. A wolf-shaped creature walked forward, its entire body wrapped in living flame. Sleek, elegant, terrifying. A firewolf king, a level-to-magic beast, had shown up to finish the job. And the moment that thing opened its mouth and hurled a fireball the size of a boulder, everyone understood the situation had just gotten much worse. Hades charged it alone, his sword glowing faint yellow with battle energy. The only thing in the village that gave anyone any hope. Every swing sparked against the wolf's claws without leaving a mark. Every fireball he cut apart drained his energy a little further. The guards watched, cheering, not realizing their captain was running out of fuel. Ming Lei watched too, but he was watching for something else entirely. A red orb had fallen from the Fire Wolf King. Ding. Fusion successful. Acquired level 1 magic, Fireball. He nearly lost his mind on the spot. The system could pick up actual magic spells. In this world, humans had almost no path to magic. No talent, no teachers, no access. The only way forward was battle energy, and his body was too weak for that path. He had been quietly losing hope, and now the system had just handed him fire. A second orb fell from the wolf. Mana up by 1. A warmth bloomed in his belly. He raised his hand. A spark appeared in his palm. It grew, trembling, into a fireball the size of a grapefruit. Small, flickering, but real. The heat coming off it was intense, and the power inside it was genuinely terrifying. He had magic. He was casting magic. Nothing in his old life had ever felt like this. Meanwhile, the wolf fired a fireball straight at Hades, who was down to his last reserves. The captain forced himself upright, sword pointed forward, ready to burn everything he had left on one desperate gamble. That was when Ming Lei acted. He launched his fireball from the side and slammed it into the wolf's attack midair. Both fireballs exploded in a burst of fire and dust that covered the entire battlefield. Every single person froze. Guards, villagers, even the Fire Wolf King. Nobody knew where the second fireball had come from. "Captain, kill it now," Ming Lei shouted from the smoke. Hades stared at him, saw the small flames still dancing on his fingertip. His eyes went wide, but he didn't waste time asking questions. They coordinated in seconds. Hades would charge head-on and draw the wolf's dodge. Ming Lei would hit it the moment it jumped. The wolf leaped. The fireball came in low and caught it in the belly. The explosion knocked the beast sideways, howling in pain. Hades was already airborne. His sword drove straight through the Fire Wolf King's throat in a single thrust. Blood sprayed. The beast crashed down dead. Hades threw back his head and laughed, and the guards went insane with relief. With the Wolf King dead, the madness faded from the beast's eyes instantly. They turned and ran, every last one of them, leaving behind nothing but bodies and blood and silence. The village had survived. Nobody died. And Ming Lei had gone from a hiding child to a mage in the space of one afternoon. Hades found him later, sharing roast boar and rough wine at the doorstep in the firelight. He told Ming Lei plainly, this was his chance. Magic talent was 1 in 10,000. In the whole village, nobody else had ever shown anything like it. He also told him something else. Something that landed like a stone dropped in still water. Every human who turned 16 in this empire had to serve. Army, mines, or slavery. No exceptions. No appeal. Unless you were a noble, a mage of level 3 or higher, or a warrior of level 4. Ming Lei was 15. The clock was already running. 1 year. He had 1 year to climb high enough to be free, or spend the rest of his life being owned. For most people, that would have been a death sentence dressed up as a deadline. For Ming Lei, it was a starting gun. Hades offered to take him to the royal capital for the magic aptitude test at Fire Dragon City. A month away. The test cost 10 gold coins. Ming Lei had spent everything during the beast tide buying fireballs. He was completely broke. So the next morning he packed dried meat and a borrowed dagger, and walked into the beast forest alone. The outer edges were mostly wild animals rather than magic beasts, manageable if he was careful. He stepped into the tree line, and the world immediately went strange. Ants the size of walnuts, caterpillars with spines like needles, earthworms as thick as his arm, bright red, writhing in the leaves. He accidentally stepped on something soft, looked down, and crushed a maggot the size of his hand. Ding. Killed 1 white-line maggot, earned 2 copper coins. Even stepping on bugs earned money. This world was completely broken in his favor. He pushed deeper and found 2 scorpion-tailed green pigs mating in a clearing, completely distracted, worth 3 to 5 gold coins each. He killed them both before they noticed him and walked away 8 gold coins heavier. That was almost enough for the test fee. But then he heard something wet and crunching, and made the mistake of pushing through the bushes to look. A snake, 30 meters long, thick as a barrel, dark green. Its jaw stretched flat around a tiger it was swallowing headfirst. He thought briefly about fighting it, decided that was insane. Then the system chimed. Dropped items detected, for orbs floating just behind the creature. Too far. Cannot pick up. He crept closer through the undergrowth, hard hammering, centimeter by centimeter. Ding. Body up by 5. Spirit up by 2. And then something he didn't expect at all. Acquired level 1 magic, Thorn Vine. A spell dropped from a snake. Regular animals never drop spells. Which meant that 30-meter nightmare was a magic beast. And he had just realized it a moment too late. The snake's cold dead eyes locked onto him. He ran. Dark green vines covered in razor thorns shot across the ground toward his legs. He launched himself off the ground at the last second, cleared the vines completely, crashed through the bushes on the other side, and kept running. Behind him, the snake stared at where he had been, then went back to its meal. He leaned against a tree, gasping, soaked in sweat, alive by maybe 1 second. He had barely entered the outer forest and already almost died twice. But the orbs were real, the coins were real, and he was getting stronger. Then he heard shouting nearby, a fight, multiple voices. He crept toward the sound and found for humans taking on a blood jade spider, a level-to-magic beast for meters tall, covered in steel-like spines. 6 eyes the size of grapefruits. They were good. 3 warriors keeping it boxed in, while a mage named Allison gathered lightning above its head on a staff. The spider sensed the danger and lunged at her. The axe even hit one of its legs, sparks flying. Not a scratch. But the delay was enough. Thunder Serpent Dance crashed down, lightning swallowing the spider whole. The 3 men rushed its weak spots. The spider screamed and went still. And from the wreckage, orbs began to fall. Ding, body up by 6, body up by 4, spirit up by 3. And then the one that stopped him cold. Acquired meditation technique. Meditation was the absolute foundation of being a mage. Without it, mana couldn't be generated. Without mana, spells couldn't be cast. Up until that moment, every drop of mana he had came from random orb pickups, unreliable and limited. This changed everything. He could now generate his own mana whenever he wanted. He was about to slip away and test it when the woman spun around and fired a lightning bolt at the tree he was hiding behind. It split the trunk clean in half, charred black down the middle. He hit the ground hard, heart slamming. Surrounded by 4 very suspicious adventurers in under 3 seconds. He played scared. It wasn't entirely an act. They let him explain. Village kid, got lost, heard the fighting, harmless. But his real mind, the 30-something adult from Earth underneath, was already calculating. These 4 were clearly academy students, judging by the badges on their chest. They were fighting level to magic beast, which meant more drops. More drops meant more stats. More stats meant more everything. He squeezed out a few tears and told them he couldn't find his way home. And just like that, he had traveling companions. Over the next several days, he followed Allison's group through the outer forest while they hunted. Iron fire ants, level 1 magic beast hard as metal, swamp poison frogs with sound wave attacks, a chrysanthemum sky pig whose main weapon was a fart so toxic it knocked out other animals. Every fight meant drops, every drop meant growth. He snuck in the killing blows on weakened beast and the system counted them as his kills. He was farming experience off people who thought they were letting a lost village kid tag along. Then came the pool salamander, a level-to-water magic beast near a waterfall massive, armored in scales that turned away every weapon they tried. Allison's lightning ripped a patch through the scales and burned the flesh beneath. Bobby had his moment, a perfect kill shot at the eye. But a wall of water appeared from nowhere and swallowed his blade before it could connect. Everyone groaned. They'd have to wait for Allison to charge another spell. And then the salamander started screaming. Because Ming Lei had climbed onto its back while everyone was distracted, and was driving his dagger into the burned, exposed flesh where the lightning had ripped through. He'd watched survival shows back on Earth. Bear Grylls, crocodiles, severing the spinal cord. He aimed for the spine. The beast bucked and thrashed like a wild horse. He was losing his grip fast. System, he said silently, convert all my gold coins into body stats. Ding, body up by 23. Congratulations. Host has advanced to level 1 warrior. Power detonated through every cell of his body. He gripped the dagger and drove it down one final time. Crack, the spine broke apart. He flew off the beast, face planted in the dirt, and grinned into the ground. The salamander collapsed dead. The 4 adventurers stood with their mouths open, completely unable to process what they had just witnessed. He told them he got lucky, accidentally hit the spine. Nobody believed him. Bobby pointed out that a pool salamander's spine was the hardest bone in its body. But there it was, cleanly severed. They couldn't argue with reality. After that they kept a respectful distance and watched him more carefully. He didn't need friendship, he needed the drops. By the end of their time together, his numbers had climbed to something extraordinary. Over 900 gold coins. Body at level 1 warrior. 126 out of 200. Spirit and mana both climbing steadily. 6 spells in his collection. But then the forest itself reminded him of his limits. A roar split the sky like a shockwave. Pain stabbed through his ears. He looked up. High overhead, floating without effort, was a creature over 100 meters long. Dragon's body, eagle's wings, lion's head, golden scales from head to tail, curved bull-like horns, claws that looked like they could shred mountains. It wasn't even flapping its wings. It simply drifted through the sky like gravity had no claim on it. Allison's voice dropped to a whisper. The Holy Domain magic beast. The golden flame dragon lion griffin. Everyone was shaking. Above level 9, beyond all normal rankings except the Holy Domain, where beings could control nature, fly freely, live forever, and level entire cities. These were walking nuclear weapons. And floating in front of this mountain-sized monster were the humans. An old man in a purple mage robe, completely calm, a girl beside him, maybe 16, beautiful, looking like she had stepped out of a painting. A purple shield covered in dancing lightning arcs kept them perfectly still in the howling wind. Holy Domain mages, both of them. The griffin's voice shook the continent. Lowly humans, what is your purpose? The old man spoke gently, like a grandfather explaining something simple. His granddaughter's 16th birthday was coming. He wanted to give her a gift. He wanted the Holy Domain griffin to become her magic pet. The group on the ground nearly lost their minds. Bobby called it the most insane thing he had ever heard. The griffin agreed with Bobby. It erupted with rage, wind elements swirling around its body. A tornado hundreds of meters tall forming between heaven and earth. From kilometers away, the destructive power was physical, like standing next to an explosion that hadn't happened yet. Run, someone said. And they all ran. They weren't fast enough. The griffin launched its tornado. The old man and the girl vanished, reappeared behind it, and a massive silver lightning bolt came with them. The two attacks met in midair, and the result was something beyond description. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The ground shook. Ancient trees snapped like twigs. Fire and electricity tore through the forest in every direction. The shockwave caught up to the running group in seconds. Something slammed into Ming Lei's head. Everything went black. When he came to, the world was still and smoking. His hand came back bloody from where he touched his head. Every part of his body ached. But he was alive, and that was something close to a miracle. He sat there in the silence and understood something he hadn't fully felt before. He had no right to spectate a battle at that level. The aftershock alone had nearly killed them all. He had underestimated this world in a way that could have ended everything. He woke the others. They were all banged up but intact. Nobody knew who had won the Holy Domain fight. The griffin was gone. The old man and the girl were gone. They walked toward where the battle had been, and what they found was the landscape of a nightmare. Scorched earth in every direction for kilometers, fires still smoldering, dried up streams, ash covering everything like black snow. This was what Holy Domain combat did to the world. This was what that level of power actually meant. And then the system chimed. Ding. Dropped items detected. His heart nearly stopped. Orbs scattered across the devastated battlefield. Dozens of them. Not from animals. Not from low-level fighters. From Holy Domain beings. He walked into the wreckage and started picking up everything. Body up by 250. Spirit up by 156. Mana up by 104. He stood completely still while the numbers registered. In a single moment, what would have taken months of grinding had just landed in his hands. Body at level 2 warrior. Spirit and mana both at level 1 mage. But that was not the prize that made him want to scream. Ding. Fusion successful. Acquired thunder magic talent. The thing he had been told he could never have. The thing that locked out 90% of humans forever. Actual magic talent, picked up from the remnants of a Holy Domain mage's battle. That night, once the others were asleep, he sat cross-legged in the dark and opened his mind. Before, every attempt at meditation had felt like reaching into empty air. This time, the moment he entered the meditation state, he saw them. Tiny silver points of light floating around him like fireflies, glowing softly in the darkness. At first just a few, then more still until the air was thick with them. Too many to count. Thunder-type magic elements. He reached out with his mind and caught the first one, then the second, then dozens at once, each one flowing into him like cool water into dry ground. He meditated through the entire night. When morning came, he stood up and felt completely refreshed, no tiredness at all. Spirit up by 3. Mana up by 10 in a single night. Small numbers compared to the windfall, but windfalls didn't happen every day. Steady daily gains were what mattered, and now he had both. After parting ways with Allison's group, he returned to Beast Village to find Hades waiting, equal parts relieved and anxious. There were only a few days left before the magic aptitude test in the capital. They had to move immediately. The next morning, he found 3 other kids already at Hades' door. Jonah, Joseph, and Andrew, childhood friends from the village. Gap-toothed grins and rough hemp clothes, and eyes full of hope. Their families had scraped together 10 gold coins each for the magic test, gambling years of savings on a 1 in 10,000 chance. They piled into an ox cart that creaked like it was dying and headed toward Fire Dragon City. 5 days of misery later, they arrived. Fire Dragon City hit them like a different world. Wide stone roads, white buildings, shops overflowing with goods. Crowds of people from a dozen races moving in every direction. Jonah's eyes spun like wheels, trying to take everything in at once. Joseph and Andrew went quiet, suddenly aware of their rough village clothes and bare feet beside noble ladies in silk dresses and expensive jewelry. The capital had that effect on people who had never left the mountains. Ming Lei walked through it with open curiosity and no shame at all. He had lived in a modern city on Earth. This was impressive, but it wasn't going to make him feel small. Hades led them toward Academy City on the west side, where 70 academies clustered together like a university district. 3 magic academies out of 70. Everything else was warrior schools. Magic needed talent, and talent was 1 in 10,000. The 3 village kids went pale when they heard that number. The testing ground was Dragon God Plaza, a massive square dominated by a 100-meter golden dragon statue. Its wings spread wide enough to block out the sky. Its frozen roar sent pressure rolling across the plaza like heat off pavement. Hades immediately pressed both hands to his chest and bowed. Everyone around them did the same. The dragon god was the founding emperor of the empire, the only worship allowed. Refusal meant heresy. Heresy meant fire. Ming Lei bowed and said the words without believing a syllable of it. He was not yet strong enough to make his own rules. The testing area was a mob, to massive lines stretching across the plaza in the blazing heat. A crystal ball the size of a basketball floated in midair, perfectly clear. Behind it stood a 3-meter spirit meter, like an oversized thermometer. They watched person after person step up. Most walked away in silence, faces hollow. A blonde commoner boy named Potter stumbled forward, pressed his shaking hands to the crystal ball, and the orb glowed muddy yellow-brown with traces of green. Earth, medium grade. Wind, low grade. Mental power 4 times average. Barely qualifies. The boy burst into tears of joy. He'd made it. His entire life had just changed in 30 seconds. Then it was Ming Lei's turn. Noble kids behind him mocked quietly. Another mudleg. No chance. The last commoner already used up all the luck. He placed both hands on the crystal ball and held his breath. He wasn't certain. The thunder talent had come through the system, not through birth. What if this thing couldn't detect it? He worried for nothing. The moment his hands touched the crystal, blinding silver light exploded from inside it. The ball blazed like a miniature sun. Silver lightning arcs raced around inside the glass, crackling and writhing like living things trying to break free. The middle-aged man who had been sleeping in his chair behind the tester snapped upright. He jumped to his feet, trembling, eyes locked on the crystal. Element affinity, thunder, super grade. The plaza went dead silent, then erupted. Super grade meant 1,000 times the clarity of low grade. Magic elements would fight each other to flow into a person at this level. Even among dragon men with inherited dragon magic talent, super grade was extremely rare. Among humans, it was unheard of. The middle-aged man shoved the young tester aside and took over personally. Mental power test. The red line inside the spirit meter shot upward the moment Ming Lei focused on it. Not a crawl, not a climb, a streak, blazing past the halfway mark without slowing. It hit the very top of the meter and filled every single mark. And everyone standing there knew that wasn't his limit. The meter just wasn't tall enough. Mental power, 100 times peers, ultra superior over all evaluation. The man's voice cracked as he announced it. The whole plaza shook with the noise. Disbelief, jealousy, shock. All of it directed at one scrawny village kid in rough hemp clothes. How does a lowly human get talent like that? We carry dragon blood, and even we don't have this. 3 old men in purple mage robes broke from the academy recruitment booths at a dead sprint. They had been bickering lastly over this year's talent when a breathless assistant ran in and told them what had happened. Thunder super grade. Mental power 100 times peers. He didn't finish his sentence before all 3 recruiters blew past him and knocked him flat on the ground. They shoved through the crowd, searching for a dragon man teenager who looked impressive. They found one. Silk robes, black wings, handsome face, clearly noble. Red Nose grabbed his shoulder. You're the genius. Hello. I'm from Fire Dragon Magic Academy, the #1 school in the kingdom. The dragon man looked confused. Teachers, I haven't taken my test yet. The 3 old men froze. Then where is he? The tired middle-aged tester pointed at Ming Lei with the expression of a man who had seen everything. That's him, right there. Six eyes snapped to the scrawny village kid in dirty clothes. A human? You're the super genius? The bidding war started immediately. One recruiter outbidding the next while the crowd watched with fascination. 2,000 gold coins per year. 3,000. 4. 5. Ming Lei watched them fight over him and felt something he hadn't felt since arriving in this world. Leverage. He picked Fire Dragon Magic Academy, the top school, and accepted the badge. A small fire dragon pin that pricked his finger and drank a drop of blood to seal the bond. Behind him, the Douglas Academy recruiter sighed heavily. He had known this was coming. When conditions were equal, every genius chose the best school. Then came the results for the others. Joseph stepped up. Fire affinity, low grade. Mental power 1 times peers. No potential to become a mudge. Andrew. Wind affinity, low grade. Mental power 1 times peers. No potential. Both boys broke down crying. They had watched Ming Lei shake the entire plaza and then been handed nothing. They couldn't understand why the person who grew up in the same dirt they did had been given everything. Ming Lei didn't have a good answer. He just put his hand on their shoulders. Then Jonah stepped up. The crystal ball glowed soft green with flashes of gray. Wood, medium grade. Wind, low grade. Mental power 8 times peers. Jonah blinked, then exploded. I can become a mudge. I can become a mudge. The plaza let her have the moment. She enrolled at Douglas Academy, the commoner school. The second child from Beast Village ever admitted. When Hades heard, he slapped Ming Lei's shoulder hard enough to bruise. But then Ming Lei looked at Joseph and Andrew, faces hollow, heading back to a future that had just gotten much smaller. Captain, do they just go home? He asked. Hades' face fell. Without magic talent, yes, back to the village. That was their fate. There are warrior academies in the capital, Ming Lei said. Some accept human commoners. They could learn battle energy. Hope flickered in the boy's eyes. Hades explained why it was impossible. Even third-rate warrior schools cost over 100 gold coins a year once you added housing, food, materials, and uniforms. For families who had barely scraped together 10 coins for the magic test, it was a different kind of impossible. Ming Lei went quiet for a moment. He had 2,300 gold coins saved. He looked at the two boys trembling at the edge of giving up completely. 200 gold coins each, he said. 1 year. After that, you're on your own. Everyone froze. Hades stared at him like he had lost his mind. The boys broke down sobbing. After the emotional wreckage of the day, they couldn't hold it together. They enrolled. They promised to repay him. He told them to just become warriors first. 200 gold coins to change their lives. He had seen worse investments. 2 days later, Fire Dragon Magic Academy opened its gates. Ming Lei stood before the entrance and took it in. Over 20,000 years of history. More than 1,100 holy domain graduates. 37 kings of the Fire Dragon Kingdom. 600 students total. Less than 100 per year, every single one of them a genius. And now him. A village kid from the mountains who had been wearing the wrong body for barely 2 months. Guards in flame armor and spear-checked badges at the gate. He pinned his to his chest and walked through. The campus was lined with massive statues on both sides of the main avenue. Dragons, dragon men, and a few human figures among them. Each one a holy domain powerhouse who had done something extraordinary. Kings, inventors, war heroes who changed the shape of continents. He read the stone tablets beneath each one and felt something stir in his chest. Could he ever stand among them? He didn't know. But the question itself felt different now than it would have a month ago. At the registration line he met Fatty, a pudgy kid in fine silk robes with tiny eyes that disappeared when he smiled. Round as a little Buddha statue. Fatty spotted a fellow human face in a sea of dragon men and immediately attached himself. Triple affinity, it turned out. Water, earth, and thunder, all high grade. Mental power 92 times peers. Behind the cheerful exterior was genuine talent. Then Lance appeared. Green skin, single horn, long tail. A dragon man who had clearly been waiting months to settle a score with Fatty. The insults escalated fast. Lance mocked Fatty's human blood, called him a disgrace, turned his contempt on Ming Lei next. Inferior species. Low-born. Not worth acknowledging. Ming Lei's fist connected with Lance's nose before anyone saw it move. The crunch of cartilage. Blood coursing through the air. Lance flying backwards screaming. The entire plaza went silent. A teacher intervened before it could escalate further, threatening expulsion for both of them. When the testing teacher saw the enrollment list and realized who he had almost expelled, his face cycled through several different shades. The top recruit of the entire academy, and he had nearly thrown him out on day 1. Ming Lei told him that if it came to that, he would just go to Douglas Academy instead. The teacher had no good answer for that. His dorm assignment was apartment for 130, a private unit that looked like a luxury villa. Classical architecture, animal fur carpets, paintings on the walls, gold trim everywhere. His roommate was a small, forgettable-looking dragon man named Abe from the imperial capital. Cold to everyone, didn't want conversation, took the upstairs room and went back to unpacking. Fine, Ming Lei didn't need company. He needed time. That evening, Fatty arrived dragging his roommate Daniel, a good-looking human kid with a warm handshake and genuine curiosity. The three of them had dinner together and felt like friends by the time the plates were cleared. Classes began the next morning. Opening ceremony, then introductions. Their class advisor was Jenny, a 6th-year senior, level 6 windmage. Tall and blonde and immediately the subject of half the male students' complete undivided attention. Their head teacher, Dirk Norway, was a thin, withered old human man who looked like a breeze could knock him down. He had reached level 9 peak at 50-something years old, one step from a holy domain. The kind of dedication that earned genuine respect. Ming Lei had one class per day. Thunder magic only, matching his single affinity. Teacher Horatio got straight to the point. Thunder magic was the most powerful and dominating of all 10 branches, no exceptions. Ming Lei listened to every word and soaked it all in. He already knew how to cast spells. What he didn't know was why they worked, the theory underneath. Magic, Horatio explained, was like commanding an army. The elements in the air were the soldiers. Mental power was the general. Casting was arranging troops into formation. That framework clicked instantly. During the afternoons, instead of studying, Ming Lei walked through the dorms, the cafeteria, the training grounds, the library corridors. Every corner of campus he could reach. Dropping orbs fell from students, teachers, visitors, everywhere he went. Body stats, spirit stats, mana orbs, spell fragments, gold coins. The campus was a gold mine and nobody knew it. He mapped out his schedule precisely. Morning class, afternoon walking, night meditation. 3-pronged, maximum efficiency. Then one afternoon Fatty flopped down dramatically on his couch and a blue orb fell from his body. Ding. Acquired Earth Magic Talent. Earth Magic Talent from Fatty. High grade, one step below super. More talents meant more paths. He signed up for Fatty's Earth Magic class the next morning. 3 months passed. 3 months of picking up drops in the afternoon, meditating at night, and quietly climbing a mountain no one else could see. Then midterms arrived and everything that had been hidden came out. Fatty warned him. Only 6 students had passed their class midterms last year out of 50. The test wasn't about your current power, it measured how much you had grown. The training ground went quiet as the first student, Larry, stepped up to the spirit meter. Mental power up by 2 in 3 months. Dirk's voice went flat. You basically did nothing. Larry failed without taking the other test. The second student failed. The third. The fourth. 37 students tested. 37 failures. Not one pass. Dirk erupted. What have you all been doing for 3 months? He raged for 10 full minutes while the teachers watched in silence like this happened every year. When he finally ran out of steam, Jenny called the next name. Ming Lei. Teachers perked up. Buddy, the other class head teacher, mentioned aloud the rumor that had been circulating on campus. The human genius who spent every afternoon just wandering around. Not studying, not meditating, just walking. Such a waste of talent, another teacher sighed. Several students smirked, ready to watch the inevitable crash. He walked up to the spirit meter and released his mental power. The red line didn't climb. It streaked upward like a bolt being fired from a cannon. It didn't slow down. It didn't hesitate. It blazed past every mark until Ginny rushed forward to read the final number. Mental power, 230 times peers. Dead silence. He had more than doubled his mental power in 3 months. When he enrolled it was 100. Now it was 230. Dirk leaned back slowly, the fury draining from his face and being replaced by something else entirely. Remarkable dedication, he said quietly. Then he looked at the other class head teacher with a cool expression. Spreading unfounded rumors about a student isn't very appropriate, wouldn't you say? But he swallowed his words like bitter medicine. Second test. Mana reserves equivalent to a level 3 image. Dragon Man students scoffed. Only 35. Nothing special. They were born with high mana, had never meditated a day in their lives to get it. Dirk silenced them instantly. He had 0 contact with magic before arriving at this academy. Every drop came from 3 months of meditation. None of you come close. Third test. Spell casting. Dirk stepped forward personally and asked Ming Lei to cast any 3 spells. Thunderball materialized in his palm, perfectly round, spinning like a basketball, blazing silver. 0 mana leakage. Under 3 seconds cast time. Perfect control. Full marks. Thunder Spear appeared next, silver and blinding, crackling with energy. Fast casting. Minimal consumption. Full marks. Then he began the third chant, and his mental power surged outward like a tide. Thunder elements rushed in from 10 meters in every direction. Dirk's eyes widened. Is that a level 3 spell? Thunder Barrier, Horatio said slowly, like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Silver light spread from Ming Lei's body and formed a shimmering dome, translucent, then solid. 3 meters wide. 19 seconds. Flawless execution. Going from complete beginner to level 3 mage in 3 months. I've never heard of anything like it, Horatio said. Dirk gave him full marks and patted his shoulder. Keep it up. Then he turned to the class with a face like a thundercloud. Now you see the gap. Still think you have room to be lazy. A dragon man named Enrollment stepped forward. Pretty spells don't mean much, he said. What matters is real combat. He looked at Ming Lei. I challenge you right here. Do you dare? He pulled out a crystal card. 10,000 gold coins. His stake. Ming Lei smiled. Let's make it more interesting. 50,000. Edelman loved that. He had pure black dragon bloodline, level for warrior body, level 3 mage stats. He looked at the scrawny human across from him and saw an easy 50,000. They stood in the center of the cleared training ground. You're human, so I'll let you go first, Edelman said, arms crossed, chin up, already deciding how he would spend the winnings. Ming Lei snapped his fingers. One thunderbolt materialized in front of him, then another, then 9 of them in total. Crackling silver, blazing bright enough to hurt to look at. Instant casting. A level 1 spell, no chant. The teachers leaped to their feet. Only level 5 mages and above could instant cast level 1 spells. He was supposed to be level 3. He flicked his finger and sent 3 thunderbolts into Adelman's chest. The dragon man laughed and let them hit. Lightning crackled across his skin. He felt nothing. You think level 1 magic can hurt me? Come on, use something stronger. Ming Lei kept firing. One ball after another, slamming into the dragon man without pause while Edelman mockingly invited more. Then Ming Lei began chanting. The electrical current still dancing across Adelman's body responded to the call. They pulled together, twisted, combined, and transformed into chains of lightning that wrapped around his arms and legs and torso. Adelman's smirk disappeared. Thunder Chains. A level 3 spell cast using the thunder elements that had already been seated inside the opponent's body. He roared and fought against the current. Every struggle sent more paralyzing shocks through his muscles, weakening him further. Horatio slammed the table. He didn't use the thunderbolts to hurt him. The other thunder teachers said in disbelief. He used them to seed the body with thunder elements and then formed the higher spell. Directly inside the opponent. All 18 bolts. Precisely the amount needed for 1 thunder chain. He planned this from the very first shot. While Edelman struggled uselessly, Ming Lei had plenty of time to chant his next spell. A gleaming spear of lightning formed in his hand. He pressed the tip against Adelman's throat. You lose. The dragon man's face was crimson. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. Ming Lei dismissed the chains and the spear and held out his hand. A bet is a bet. Edelman threw the crystal card at him and walked away furious. Fatty and Daniel stared at him like he had descended from somewhere above the clouds. He told them honestly that he wasn't calm. He wanted to laugh. Not because of how he looked, because he had just won 50,000 gold coins, and he knew exactly what to do with them. After 3 months of grinding, his spirit and mana were sitting right at the edge of a breakthrough. System, convert 35 points into spirit and 7 of 4 into mana. Ding. Congratulations. Host has become a level for mage. Mana flooded through his body. His mind sharpened like a lens being focused. Less than 5 months in this world, and he had reached level for mage. That had to be a record somewhere. When all the testing was done, their class had exactly 7 passes out of 49. Ming Lei, Fatty, Daniel, his cold roommate Abe, Donna from the Frost Kingdom, 1 human commoner, 1 dragon man commoner. 42 failed. That evening he took Fatty and Daniel to the best restaurant near campus to celebrate. Order whatever you want. They took him at his word. Golden armored lizard stir-fry, boiled blood mantis, sour magic whale liver. Every dish over 100 coins. He watched the total climb with a twitching eye and said nothing. He had made the offer. He wasn't taking it back. Across the wall from their table, a group was congratulating someone on winning 20 straight fights at the fighting arena, earning silver rank status. 10,000 gold coins per fight as appearance fee. Ming Lei's ears went sharp. 10,000 coins per fight. That was 1,000 attribute points per match. Fatty explained that gold rank fighters earn hundreds of thousands per appearance. Walking celebrities. A new idea was forming. The arena was full of fighters in battle. Fighters in battle dropped things. Excited crowds dropped things. And the appearance fees converted straight to attribute points. Two benefits. One location, dangerous, yes. But nothing in his life had been safe since the morning he woke up in Beast Village. He left campus the next afternoon and took a magic-powered car to the flame fighting arena. On the wealthy east side of the city. The building was enormous, shaped like a flame, glowing red. Something between a coliseum and an opera house. He told the guard at the gate he wasn't there to watch. He wanted to become a fighter. The guard looked at him with visible skepticism. He was a mage. Mages almost never came here. Inside, a sharp-eyed old man named Ano studied him from behind a desk. Ming Lei chanted a quick spell. 3-meter thunder spears materialized in the air, spinning like electric drills. Ano stood up. You really are a level for mage. I misjudged you. He signed the contract after reading every word twice. Welcome to the flame fighting arena, Ano said warmly. Fewer than 10 mages and over 10,000 fighters. You are a rare find. That night was the King of Fighters Championship match at the Golden Arena, the Flame Death stage. His fighter badge gave him free access. He took a seat in the observation area and let the spectacle unfold. Auden Fillet, the defending champion, Red Dragon royalty, 2.5 meters of fire and muscle. Nicholas Austin, the giant spirit god for meters tall, bronze skin, spiked mace. 3-time champion who had placed third at the Imperial Emperor of Fighters tournament. The crowd noise was physically painful. Noble women shrieked. Fat lords waved their arms. Ming Lei was not watching the show. He was watching the orbs raining down from 60,000 hysterical spectators. Spirit orbs mostly, dropping in unusual quantities as emotions ran high. He slipped into the regular stands and started moving through the crowd, picking up everything. By the time the fight started, he had already gained over 100 spirit points from the audience alone. On stage, the two kings clashed. Auden struck fast. Nicholas absorbed everything and hit back like a collapsing wall. Auden was faster. Nicholas was stronger. One couldn't deliver a finishing blow. The other couldn't land one. Then Auden made a mistake. A split-second distraction. Thinking about the fire dragon scripture and how much stronger he would have been if he had mastered it completely. Nicholas had been waiting decades for exactly that kind of opening. A feint with the mace. Auden dodged. Then the fist came crashing down and connected clean. Blood erupted from Auden's mouth. He flew backward. Nicholas followed with a storm of blows. Auden tumbled through the air like paper in a gale. The fire dragon had lost. But Ming Lei wasn't watching the aftermath. He was already moving toward the stage. Because the moment Auden took that first devastating punch, a blood-red orb had fallen from his body. A level 9 warrior's drop. Ding. Fusion successful. Congratulations, host has acquired Fire Dragon Bloodline. He stopped dead. Fire Dragon Bloodline. The exact thing he needed to use the Fire Dragon scripture he had picked up earlier, and had no way to activate. He hadn't given permission for the fusion. It had already happened. A red flame appeared inside his body, split into thousands of tiny fire dragons, and shot through every cell at once. Then the pain arrived. Like gasoline in the veins and someone lighting a match, every nerve screaming, every cell burning. He made it to the bathroom before the transformation took over. Red flames erupted from his skin. His clothes burned to ash. Every muscle twitched, every bone rattled. Black smoke seeped from his pores. Sharp red scales pushed through his skin with wet tearing sounds, spreading across his arms. His chest, his back. A thick dragon tail burst from his lower back. Red horns grew from his forehead. A ghostly fire dragon appeared at his back, blazing scales, wings spread, roaring at something only it could see. Then the flames died and the pain retreated like a tide going out. He collapsed on the floor in a pool of blood and sweat, gasping, staring at the ceiling. When he finally got up and looked in the mirror, he saw dragon scales, a tail, horns, and eyes that flickered with red light. Then he checked his stats and stopped breathing for a moment. Body, level 5 warrior, tripled from before. Mana, level 5 mage, doubled. The dragon bloodline was insane. Abe had followed him into the bathroom and was watching with that cold, unreadable expression. Late bloodline awakening, he said simply. Not unusual among dragon men. Why would you want to change back? He asked, when Ming Lei asked how to reverse it. Everyone in this empire dreams of having dragon blood, and yours is the royal fire dragon bloodline. 5 minutes later the scales receded, the tail and horns vanished, and he was human again. Apparently thin dragon blood couldn't hold the form for long. That night, instead of sleeping, he studied the fire dragon scripture. He ran the technique. The fire dragon battle energy stirred and began moving through his meridians like a slow river. Learning how to run. By morning, his body stat had jumped by over 40 points. 40 per night, over 1,200 per month. His schedule reorganized itself immediately. Mornings, fire dragon scripture. Afternoons, drops. Evenings, arena fights and meditation. 3 days later, he skipped class for the third consecutive morning. Dirk found out. Jenny called. A challenge from Lance appeared next in the hallway. Freshly powered up by Dragon Bone Herb to level 5 warrior, full of revenge fantasies. Ming Lei accepted the bet without hesitation. 50,000 gold coins. Why not? On the battle stage, Lance launched himself at Ming Lei midair with the look of someone who had already written the ending in his head. 2 words, Thunder Serpent. Instant cast. Level 3 spell. No chant. Lance swallowed whole by crackling lightning before he even landed. The referee teacher jumped to his feet. Instant cast level 3 magic requires at least a level 7 mage. Over and over Ming Lei hit Lance with the same low-level spell, letting him break free, then trapping him again. Using weak magic to humiliate a powered-up dragon man in front of every student on campus. The dragon man nobles in the audience seethed. Not one of them stepped forward when Ming Lei invited them to take Lance's place. The human students watched in silence. For people who spent every day being reminded they were lesser, this felt like something bigger than a sparring match. Lance collapsed under the final raging thunderstrike, completely broken, and Ming Lei collected his 50,000 without looking back. Dirk's anger about skipping class evaporated when the referee rushed in and described what had just happened on the battle stage. He let Ming Lei skip, told him not to let his studies fall behind, and that he would be watching. Understood, Ming Lei said, and went back to doing exactly what he had been doing. 3 more months passed. Winter break arrived. Fatty knocked on his door cheerful and round and asking if he was going home. The word hit harder than expected. Not Beast Village, not the academy, home, the real one on Earth. The coastal city, his nagging parents, his mischievous son, his sharp-tongued wife, and the warm smell of food on the table. Since arriving in this world, he had buried those memories as deep as they would go and kept moving. But now they came rushing back like a door swinging open. His eyes stung. He turned away until he had himself under control again. Just homesick, he said. One big dinner before we split up. My treat, Jexian Tower. They ate like kings and drank like sailors and celebrated the end of their first semester at the best restaurant in the capital. Fatty's monthly allowance disappeared in a single afternoon. He wailed about it the whole way out. 20,000 gold coins a month from his father, just pocket money. While Ming Lei risked his life at the arena and ground drops every day and barely kept ahead. The gap between noble kids and everyone else was its own kind of insult. But the dinner conversation had planted something useful. A level 7 magic beast worth 30,000 gold coins. That was 3,000 attribute points. Level 8 started at 1 million. Level 9 had sold at auction for 37 million. 37 million gold coins. If he had that, he could convert it into something close to godlike. He filed it away for later. First, he needed a storage device. He was heading back to Beast Village for the break and needed to bring back cores and carcasses to sell. He walked into a magic device shop and got his first real look at the price gap between his world and the noble's world. The cheapest storage ring in the building cost 190,000 gold coins. He practically ran out. Half a year of fighting and grinding and saving, and he couldn't afford the bottom shelf item. In a single shop, he went to the arena to blow off steam and fought at Silver Arena number 7, a step up from bronze. His opponent was a veteran with nearly 200 career fights who had built a following over years of work. The audience screamed Ming Lei's stage name, the Thunder God, louder than they screamed for the veteran. Noble women were blushing and shrieking. In a few months of fighting, he had become something close to a celebrity. The veteran came out blazing in red flames, furious about the crowd's reaction. Charging at full speed, Ming Lei hit him with a single lightning bolt that burned a black spot through his flame shield, staggered him for a fraction of a second, then raining thunder from above, then 10 enormous thunder serpents, each 30 meters long, thick as barrels, crashing down one after another and drowning the entire stage in lightning. The audience went completely insane. When the electricity finally cleared, the flame tiger was lying on the stage, clothes burned off, body charred, unconscious. Ding. Fusion successful. Congratulations, host has acquired Flame Demon Bloodline. Another bloodline. He called Fatty immediately. What do you know about flame demons? Fatty went into full professor mode. During the ancient elf age, when the continent was 90% covered in forest and the elves walked through paradise, the flame demons appeared. Nobody knew where they came from. Maybe this world, maybe somewhere else entirely. Burning eyes, manes of living flame, and wherever they went, forests turned to ash within decades. The ancient elves, who had kept the Titans completely suppressed for generations, were destroyed by them. Eventually, the other races united and wiped the flame demons out. But the cost was everything the elves had. The Titans moved in and took over before the ashes had even cooled. Creatures carrying flame demon blood were still out there, Fatty said. They had rampaged across the continent for too long not to leave descendants. After hanging up, Ming Lei barely had time to process it before the heat surged through him again. Bloodline fusion. He ran. In the bathroom, blood-red flames erupted from his skin, this time threaded through with wisps of black smoke. The pain was familiar now, tearing and burning through every nerve. But his stronger mental power helped him hold back the screams. His skin turned black, his arms stretched longer, fingernails extended into claws. Steel-like bristles pushed through his back. A bull-like tail for horns on his head, too long and too short a demon's crown. When he looked in the mirror, he saw black skin, yellow eyes, a bristling mane, elongated arms, dancing flames across his entire body. Not exactly handsome, but the power surging through him was something beyond what words could measure. His body had just gotten massively stronger, comparable to the boost from the fire dragon blood. He stood in the dim light of an arena bathroom at the end of his first semester, covered in demon fire, carrying to bloodlines no human was ever supposed to have. He thought about where he had started. A body stat of 0.5. No mana, no spells, no money, no plan. He thought about where he was now. Level 5 warrior image, to bloodlines, 6 spells, a growing fortune, a stage name the entire capital knew, and a system that hadn't stopped giving since the first orb fell at Uncle Leo's feet, during a beast tide in a village no one had ever heard of. The flame demon transformation held for a few minutes, then receded like the fire dragon had. He walked back out into the arena corridor, human-shaped and composed, and started heading toward the exit. Outside, the capital moved around him, nobles and merchants and dragon men and beast people, all of them fitting into the slots the Empire had carved for them. He didn't fit into any slot. That was the point. He had arrived here as a third-of-something office worker with no magic, no power, no blood, and no future. In less than 6 months he had climbed from the very bottom rung to somewhere that made the people, who once wouldn't have looked at him twice, now step aside when he walked through. But this was still early. He knew that. Hades had said level for warrior or level 3 mage was the threshold for freedom. He had cleared that ceiling months ago. The ceiling above him now was a different kind of vast. Level 9, the holy domain. The kind of power where you stood in the open sky and spoke to ancient creatures as equals, and they sometimes listened. The old man in the purple robe, floating without effort in front of a 100-meter golden griffin, calmly asking for a birthday gift. That image had never left him. He wanted to be able to do that someday. Not to show off, just to know that nothing in this world could make him small again. He started composing his schedule for next semester in his head, while walking back toward the academy gate. Fire dragon scripture every morning, drops in the afternoon, arena fights when the fees were good, meditation every night, and somewhere in there, studying level 5 and 6 spells on his own, because class had already taught him everything it had to offer. The stars over Fire Dragon City were brighter than any city sky he had ever seen on Earth. No light pollution, no smog, just ancient darkness and the kind of silence that made you feel like the world had always been this large, and you had just been living in a very small part of it. He thought about his family again, briefly, before putting the thought back in its box. Not forever. He wasn't built for forgetting. But for now, there was work to do, and grief didn't make him stronger. The fire dragon scripture moved in his meridians like something alive, slow and deliberate in building. The thunder talent he had picked up from a battlefield. No ordinary person could have survived pulse steady and clear in the back of his mind. To bloodlines that should have been impossible to carry sat quiet inside him, waiting. He had started with nothing and built something from dropped scraps, one orb at a time. The path from here to the holy domain was long. Years. Maybe decades of this same relentless grinding. But he had something most people in this world would never have. A system that turned every encounter, every fight, every emotional crowd, every stumbled upon battlefield into fuel. As long as things happened around him, he would keep getting stronger. And in a world with beast tides and dragon wars and ancient bloodlines, and holy domain beings fighting above cities, things were always happening. The academy gates came into view ahead, lit by flame lamps, guards standing straight and still. He pressed his badge to the scanner and walked through without slowing. 1 semester down. a boy from the very bottom of the world's lowest class, now carrying the bloodlines of a fire dragon and a flame demon, ranked at the top of the best magic academy in the kingdom. The dragon men who had sneered at him on his first day now stepped out of his way. The teachers who had doubted him now watched his progress with something close to awe. And somewhere in the city, Lance was probably still nursing his bruised pride from the battle stage. Ming Lei walked back toward apartment 430 with his hands in his pockets, and the quiet hum of fire dragon battle energy moving through his blood. He wasn't the strongest person in this world. Not even close, not yet. But every single day, the gap between him and the things that had once looked down at him was getting smaller. The fire dragon scripture burned steady in his chest. The thunder talent crackled at the edge of his thoughts. The demon bloodline slept beneath his skin, ready. He had a system that picked up what the world dropped, and this world dropped a great deal. He was 15 years old, wearing a borrowed body in a world that had never wanted him, and he was just getting started. Whatever came next, whatever beast, tide, or noble, or dragon, or titan tried to put him back at the bottom, he would be ready. Because Ming Lei had learned the only rule that mattered in this world. The ones who keep picking themselves up are the ones who eventually run out of things to fear.